2 or 3 minutes is to present on what is the evidence base for single dose. Is it ready for practice? Not only in the public health front as part of the screening programs, but also in the context of the clinicians' practice in their office. First, with the permission of the chairpersons, I would like to dedicate this lecture to Ms. Henrietta Lacks, the donor of HeLa cells, and Dr. Jaya Zhu. We would have all heard about HeLa cells. This was donated by Henrietta Lacks in 1951, before she died from cervical cancer. And this is the first established in vitro immortal cancer cell line. And that has completely transformed medical research from then onwards. Then Dr. Surasan actually discovered HPV-18 in the originally biopsied HeLa cells in the early 1980s. And later, Jaya Su, he's no more, a Chinese virologist, along with Dr. Ian Fraser, developed the VLPs in Australia in 1991 and got the patent. And this is based on proteins expressed on HPV viral capsid. Actually, the protein, the VLP, was produced actually by his wife, Dr. Saya Yu Sen, based on the instructions from Dr. Zhu's advice. So we all know that currently there are about 6 vaccines which have been licensed, of which 4 are available in India. Cervarix, Gardasil 9, and Cervavac, the Serum Institute vaccine. The Chinese vaccine, Secolin, and the Valvax HPV vaccine, both are bivalent, have been licensed. Excuse me, ma'am?
Can you just put it on slideshow?
Sorry, yeah. Yes. Sorry, ma'am. So the Chinese vaccines are licensed in China and many other countries, but not in India yet. And one of them is WHO pre-qualified. The Indian vaccine, Cervavac, which is a quadrivalent vaccine, is waiting for PQ, the WHO pre-qualification, which will make its accessibility in different countries more easier. It is recently licensed in India. From April onwards, it is available in the market. And this is also, the price has to come down, I think, eventually, for more access. So as Dr. Pai already pointed out, the WHO has already recommended revised dose schedules, 1 or 2 dose schedules for men and for boys and girls aged between 9 to 20, and 2 doses for those above the age of 21, and 2 or 3 doses for immunocompromised women, like HIV-infected women, and who are on immunosuppressive therapy. So actually, as Dr. Suneja said, from 3 to 1, what is the evidence? If you look at the evidence base over the last 14 years, there is a growing evidence that an effect similar to 3 and 2 doses could be achieved with a single dose of HPV vaccination. This is the summary statement for me. There are results from cohort studies like the IARC India trial with quadrivalent vaccine and the Costa Rica trial with the bivalent vaccine, which have shown comparable efficacy between single dose and multi-dose schedules, with sustained antibody levels shown for at least 11 years in the Indian trial, and protection in terms of CIN demonstrated in both the trials, both IARC as well as Costa Rica, over a period of 10 years. And now there is recent evidence coming from planned randomized single-dose vaccine trials, such as the Kenshi trial, the Doris trial in sub-Saharan Africa, and the HANS trial in Gambia, and the Escudo trial in Costa Rica. Prisma incorporated in that. First, I will go with the Indian study. This is one of the landmark studies, it is a saga itself. It was started as a planned 2-dose versus 3-dose trial. And halfway through, the vaccination was suspended, which led to, by default, a single-dose arm, in addition to 2-dose arm at 0 to 6 months plus, and a 3-dose arm, 0, 1, and 0, 2, and 6 months plus. So this was, it saw some very challenging times in its course, but it is a saga. That's why I'm calling it a saga. So you have 10-year results now at the moment in terms of the trends in antibody levels. So as you see here, almost all of them in the single dose arm have seroconverted, even though the antibody levels are lower than 2 doses or 3 doses. but still it is around 15 times higher than natural immunity. So we don't know what is the threshold limit to protect against disease, but current evidence shows this is quite okay. And when you look at the neutralizing antibodies, which are very important in neutralizing HPV infections, there also it is the same finding over a 10-year period, which has been recently published. And it also shows vaccine efficacy around 97.5% in the 2-dose, 3-dose, and 1-dose arm. They're exactly similar as compared to a default, not a default, an unplanned, unrandomized, unvaccinated arm. The protection is like 97.5% for persistent infections with HPV 16 and 18. And there is even some cross protection against HPV 31, 33, 45, which people may not consider very significant, but to me, it is there. And over this 10-year period, we have looked into screening women who reach 25 years and above once in 5 years. Screening is done with hybrid capture 2, and genotyping is done with their genotyping procedure. And actually, if you see here, the protection in terms of CAN 2 and 3 as compared to the unvaccinated arm is very high, 27 times higher incidence frequency of CAN 2 and 3, the unvaccinated arm compared to the vaccinated group. And within the vaccinated group, the incidence of CAN 2 and 3, vaccine-targeted CAN 2 and 3 are almost similar. So I would like to thank all the participants as well as the main investigators, beginning from Dr. Jayan to Smita to Yasmi to Musharani to Parthabasu, and all those people who have contributed, in maintaining this study, which was a real challenge for 3 to 4 years, with Dr. Neerja keeping anchorage in New Delhi. Now, I will come to the other trials, the planned randomized trials in Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is nowadays leading in establishing so many outcomes, important outcomes in the context of cervical cancer prevention, which are going to influence global policies. And this is because of the very effective collaborations that Sub-Saharan Africans can build in, and again, the interest with which they collaborate with other agencies, which is not protective in essence. So this is a trial in Tanzania which randomized 930 girls aged 9 to 14 years with 3 different dose schedules of Cervarix, Gardasil 9 vaccines, 3 doses, 2 doses, given 6 months apart, and or a single dose. And all the participants have been followed for 36 months. The endpoints are the HPV specific antibody levels, the vaccine targeted HPV antibody levels, antibody avidity, the strength of the antibody to neutralize, how long they survive and neutralize HPV viruses, and the memory B cell responses. This is the most latest results which has been published. As you see here, the antibody levels over a 2-year period are exactly as in the case of the Indian vaccine trial. Very consistent data coming from a different situation. Whether it is 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, there is zero conversion. The antibody levels are lower in the 1 dose arm as compared to 2 dose, 3 dose. But they are all remaining seropositive at 3 years. This is the avidity. This is a very important result. The Indian data also showed the avidity results. We published in the first paper. Then the DKFS said, which helped us in the avidity, that some reservations. So we were not projecting that. But this is the avidity data from the Doris trial in Tanzania, which shows the avidity, HPV 16 and 18 antibody avidity, with Cervarix and Gardasil 9, 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, are exactly similar. It's a very important information. Another important study is the Kenshi study in Kenya. 15 to 20-year-old women randomized to Cervarix or delayed meningococcal vaccine or Gardasil 9. This is a very, very interesting design. Cervarix followed by delayed meningococcal vaccine after 36 months. The second group, Gardasil 9 and delayed meningococcal vaccine after 36 months. That is a group 2. And the group 3 is meningococcal vaccine and delayed HPV vaccine. So if you see, the distribution is more or less similar, the participant distribution. The outcome measure is persistent vaccine type HPV infection in 18 to 36 months. And this is the prevalence, the frequency of persistent, or the cumulative incidence of persistent vaccine-targeted HPV infections in the different groups. Look at the meningococcal. It is quite high. And the bivalent vaccine for HPV 16 and 18, and the nanovalent vaccine for the 9 vaccine types, they are all much lower than that of the control arm. So this is the HANS trial in Gambia, which is a non-inferiority trial. And this is again, those with the 15 to 26-year-old cohort will receive 3 doses of Gardasil at 0, 2, and 6 months as the reference group. And this is one of the first studies to randomize 4 to 8-year-old girls in an effort to take back the vaccine to much younger girls. So females in the 9 to 14-year-old and 4 to 8-year-old cohorts will be randomized to receive either 1 or 2 doses of Gardasil 9. In both the groups, the 2 doses will be administered at 0 and 6 months. And they will be compared with the 15 to 26-year-old girls who would receive 3 doses of Gardasil. And this is another trial in Costa Rica, the Escudo Prima trial, which will again evaluate 1 dose of nanovalent vaccine, 1 dose of bivalent vaccine, 1 dose of active control group, which is tetanus toxoid vaccine in 18 to 30-year-old girls. The women will be followed over a period of 3 years to determine the total reduction in incident HPV 16 and 18 infection that persists 6 or more months. The trial will investigate reductions in oral and anal persistent infections as well. So there have been studies which have been done in different countries. So all this evidence will be very important to collate and to give you a direction. So in summary, HPV vaccination has a major role in eventual cervical cancer elimination. Single dose is critical HPV vaccination strategy for wider coverage and rapid elimination. Augmented production of affordable vaccine. There's a vaccine deficiency at the moment, shortage now, but this will be addressed very soon. The Chinese manufacturers are increasing their production capacity to several million doses. The Indian vaccine manufacturer will also do the same thing. So all these installed capacities and new vaccine producers and the new vaccines on the pipeline from China and India, the nonavalent vaccines, the 12-valent vaccines from China, the 20-valent vaccines from China, when all this hit market, I think there is going to be a broader supply, a wider supply of the vaccines, which will bring down the prices, just like the vaccine prices dropped for hepatitis B vaccine over a period of 10 to 15 years as soon as the Indian manufacturer came into vogue. So in this case, the potential LMIC manufacturers are vital. So there are 2 issues here. This is the WHO recommendation. This is the most latest reference on the WHO position paper on HPV vaccines. So they have categorically said a single dose schedule can be used in girls and boys aged 9 to 20 years. A single dose has comparable efficacy and duration of protection as a 2-dose schedule. From a public health perspective, the use of a single dose can offer substantial benefit. There are 2 situations here. The 2 situations is, one is a public health program as a screening program. So WHO recommends a single dose is ready for implementation in a public health screening program, which will target a single age cohort or a multiple age cohort like 9 to 14, 9 to 18, depending upon the resources. That is a public health context. In that context, there is no evidence as to support the introduction of vaccines for older age women in a public health program. My colleague Smita will be talking about the vaccinating adult populations, middle populations. But in a clinician's office, it is a shared decision making. She will be sharing the important information in this context. Thank you very much for your attention. So I would conclude by saying the single vaccine is ready for implementation in public health screening as well as in physicians' offices as a prescription. Dr. Pai raised the issue of litigation. Actually, the vaccines have the higher probability of protecting against disease. And breakthrough infections, breakthrough disease can happen. They are extremely rare. And actually, when vaccination is given through a national immunization program, they are not subjected to litigation issues. This is a very important thing. And even in the case of a person prescribing, with the wide policies available, the evidence base available, it is safe for a practitioner to prescribe a single dose. I will be very provocative and categorical here. And of course, you'll be following them and things like that. And as we go on, new data will emerge if there is a need for a booster dose. As of now, I mean, there is no evidence or there is no suggestion that a booster dose may be needed, but future will only tell. So we can go on modifying our practices as and when the new evidence comes in. But at the moment, it's a time to implement what we know. Thank you very much for your kind attention.